Hello everyone. So we are on a new chapter in math, and this chapter is all about decimals. We're going to start off with place value of decimals, and then we're going to move into learning how to add and subtract decimals. So today we are just going to learn about the place value of decimals. Tomorrow we're going to learn about patterns of decimals, and we'll move on from there. Okay, so let's get started. Just like when we had place value of regular numbers, we still have periods in terms of place value, right? Can anybody remember what this, we'll start off with 716, 716. What period are those three numbers in? Thousands, ones, or decimals? The ones period, that's right. So we're gonna put our ones right there. Okay, what about that 489? What period is the 489 in? Thousands or decimals? That's right, the thousands period. So we're going to move our thousands to right there. Okay, and then this last period, this is what we're learning about this time. It's actually the decimals period because it is behind that decimal right here. Okay, so anything behind the decimal, we have the decimals period. Now we're going to talk about what we call each of those place values within that period. So our 6 is in what place? The ones place. What about that 1? What place is our 1 in? That's right, it's in the tens place. What about that 7? What place is our 7 in? The hundreds place. When we move to that 9, we are now in the thousands period. So what is the place value of that 9? 1,000 or 1,000, right? That's in our thousands place. What about the 8? 10,000. And that 4? Is in the hundred thousands place. Now that one's a little bit harder to see. Let's see if we can move it up some. So that 4 is in our hundred thousands place. Now we're going to talk about what those three numbers are called behind the decimal. And we're going to focus on that first three numbers. So the one odd thing about decimals is that when we start at the decimal and we go to the right, okay? So when we start at that 2, yes.
Will you post your attendance for me?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty guys, give me 1 second, I'll be right back. Sorry about that guys, I had to post my attendance, just like you're in actual school, right? Okay, so that 2 is actually not in the ones place. It's gonna be in the tenths place. Tenths. So when you're talking about places behind the decimal, they're always gonna have that THS on the end of the place value. But we don't start in the ones, we start in the tenths, right? So we have the tenths, then we move to our hundredths, 100 with that THS on the end, and then our 7 is going to be in our thousandths place. They sound very similar to our tens, hundreds, and thousands, but they have that THS on the end. So it's tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. Make sense? Awesome. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how we can write and say our numbers with decimals in standard, word, and expanded form. So when we start, we have 982 and 147 thousandths. That means that we have 982. That's our whole number. And then our decimals are 147 thousandths and represents that decimal point, okay? So we've really got to work on not saying and when we say 902. We've got to say 902 and 147 thousandths, okay? So when we write that in standard form, it's just the number, right? It's just how we would write it normally. When we write it in word form, we write out the words like you can see right here, 982 and 147 thousandths. And that thousandths has that THS because it's our decimal. So that is our word form. And then we have our expanded form, which is how we wrote out with the parentheses and multiplied it times the place value, right? Right here, you can kind of see, let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger so we can look at it together. Okay, so we have we have 9 times 100 because our 9 is in the hundreds place, right? So we have 9 hundredths plus 8 times 10 because our 8 is in the tens place, plus 2 times 1 because our 1 is in the ones place. And you don't put a decimal when you are writing in expanded form, you just continue going. However, you're going to either write it as a fraction or you can write it as a decimal. I'm going to show you both ways, okay? So like you see here, the next number in 982 and 147 thousandths is 1, and it is in the tenths place. Tenths as a fraction is 1 over 10. If you do not like the fraction form, you can also put 1 times 0.1. Okay, 1 times 0.1 or 1 times 1 over 10 are the same thing, whichever makes more sense to you. Okay, plus, what's that next number? 4. And what place is it in? The hundredths place. So that is times 1/100th. If you want to write it as a decimal instead of a fraction, it's just 0.01, whichever makes more sense to you, okay? Plus 7, that's our next number, it's in the thousandths place. So we multiply it times 1 over 1,000, or what do you think 1 over 1,000 is as a decimal? 0.001. Awesome job, guys. So this would be how we would write that in expanded form. And I'll drag it over here. It may cover up some stuff, but that's okay. That way we just know where it would go. Okay? So your assignment for this is I am going to give you this number, and it's going to be on Wiser, so it'll be larger and easier for you to fill it out. It's going to be multiple choice. You have the number 2,345 982 thousandths. You're going to write that in standard, word, and expanded form, okay? If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will see you guys tomorrow for our next lesson.